Let's see to move you closer. That's better. Still, I've got to look good, man. If it's going out, I just need to fucking make sure that I look good and it looks good. And I'm happy and everything's in good shape. So
you look lovely, sir.
Thank you, man. I had my beard trimmed especially. So okay.
Cool.
I think we're good.
All right. Brilliant. Just want to start off first and foremost by thanking you for agreeing to take the time to continue on the conversation that we've been having online. And I want to reiterate to anyone at the time when you come to watch this to understand the positioning of this conversation. It is a conversation, it is education, it's an exchange of information to better the environment that me and Simon work in, to learn, I guess, from mistakes that some of us may have made, and to better inform the wider community through having really honest and open discussions on conversations like race and the treatment of Black contributors within our environment. So once again, thank you, Simon. How you doing at the moment?
Good. I mean, it's been a challenging few months for most people. We're managing to see our way through it, and I just, obviously we want to see an end to lockdown and people getting back together and socializing and getting on with their lives. But apart from that, I can't complain.
Yeah, I think I would like to talk to you about that on a broader scale as to kind of the challenges that we feel our industry is going to face over the next couple of months, maybe years, as a result of this. But just to bring it back to why we're here today, which is kind of the conversation in regards to it's coming off the back of Blackout Tuesday, which was, to contextualize it, it was the music industry's response, or the entertainment industry's response to the deaths of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor in America, two Black individuals unlawfully murdered by police in America, and the butterfly effect which happened as a result of that, and it kind of reverberated within the consciousness of Black people, which some white contributors like yourself may have missed out on. So I think that's where we're kind of maybe starting the discussion. This isn't a certain blame on anyone. It was merely just a gentle nudge and a wake-up call to our peers within the industry, because we all work alongside each other, as to what frequency we was on when that happened. How did you feel about it when you initially saw my thread at the time?
I mean, a number of things, to be fair. I mean, I don't think that many people, or certainly us, I can only speak for us personally, because I can't speak for other people. I don't think that we were not aware, or I think that we were sleeping, or on the situation. It's just, we could see how people were reacting, and quite rightly the rage that it caused on social media. And social media is a battleground at the best of times. Mm-hmm. And it became really extreme at that moment. We were having conversations about it. I mean, we run an organization which has a lot of eyes and ears, and we speak to a lot of people, and some people choose to listen to us, some people choose to ignore us. That's just the way that it is. But we wanted to be really considered in our response. During that deliberation, people approached us and said, "You're silent, and silence is being complicit," and et cetera, et cetera. We were absolutely appalled by what happened. We absolutely wanted to support our Black artists, our Black friends, the Black community, etc. But we just wanted to make sure that we did it in the right way. Perhaps we deliberated a little too long. And I think that was probably our mistake. So we are, our mantra for many years now has been, in our house we are all equal. We encourage diversity in everything that we do, and we don't stand for discrimination, prejudice, racism, any kind of victimization in any way, shape, or form. And I think that's been very clear. And I think that the instances, the George Floyd death, and brought it very much to the forefront of everybody's attention. And rightly, people were absolutely outraged. And that, I mean, some people say, we want you to support us. Other people will say it's none of your business, keep out of it. And that, I think, was the reason we wanted to make sure that our response was considered. But obviously, and again, some people said it wasn't quick enough, and some people said, thank you for your response, it's really, really appreciated. So unfortunately, we live in a world where everybody has an opinion and everybody has a view, and you're not going to keep everybody happy. All we can possibly do is do the things that in the best way we can, to the best of our ability. And it's going to be good enough for some people, and for some people it's just not, and that's just the world that we live in now.
And I agree in regards to the work that you have put in well over the years. I mean, I've known about you for as long as I've been working in music, and the contributions that you've made to Black musicians and contributors in the scene in helping them articulate their art form. So for me, from my perspective, even you taking time to actually be put in an uncomfortable space, because this is what we're all in now. We're in uncomfortable spaces to further a collective environment that we all work in. I think that's in itself powerful. And I hope more people watching this kind of look at this situation and don't look at it from a perspective of fear, but look at it from a perspective of, okay, this is uncomfortable, but something good can come from it based off the information I receive. Even looking at it from my perspective, again, I don't speak for all Black people. I'm not the the spokesperson for Black Arsenal fans or whatever or whatever. But just from the energy that I felt around the contingent that I was close to, and it's also in relationship to how we see yourself, Simon, as someone who is championing the Black voice within music. I think that obviously would have played a part heavily on expectation on your end, which is obviously can be quite unfair on yourself, because that is a lot of expectation. But I think it lends itself to the idea of how we expect our allies, our white allies, who obviously have a sense of privilege and triple A pass in regards to the spaces you can access and we can access, to maybe advocate for us in those instances. So I'll definitely take accountability for that side of things, and it being a bit of an unfair pressure on yourself. But it was, I guess, an instance where the voiceless, we actually need the help of our allies who are already doing that to kind of just affect change in that area.
We're very present on social media. It's a big part of our interaction with our communities, etc. It's the main reason that we actually have survived as a business over the last 5 years, because it's, we talk directly to the people that attend our events, that buy our music, that support what we do, and that is not something that we have to be mindful of everything that we say. We're not a political party, but we also know the influence that we have, and we can change perception. And I think that, we're a music label, we're a music company, and music and dance floors is one of the few areas where prejudice seems to be broken down. People can meet each other on the dance floor. We have a party called Glitterbox, which is everybody is welcome, and we have a huge diversity of people attend the parties, a big gay community, and you know, I think that people can go to that party because they have a love of disco, and maybe they have some preconceptions about the gay community and gay people, etc. And then they find themselves having a drink or dancing next to a gay person, and then all of a sudden those barriers seem to come down, and music's done that over the past. I watched a documentary on Motown where Martin Luther King approached Berry Gordy because Berry Gordy was trying to bring the youth of America together through music on the dance floor. And Martin Luther King acknowledged how powerful that was and wanted to line his civil rights movement to Motown, to music, because he could see how powerful that was. And that's not lost on me. That's one of the things that we've really, you know, tried to preach and bring people together on a regular basis. So it's you know, we understand our responsibility in this situation, but like I said, it's you know, not everybody, a lot of people are looking to trip you up on social media. You can say the wrong thing. You can, I mean, you know, you called me out about my tweets about where I say music has no color. And you know, I was a little disappointed. I mean, I understand how that was maybe a little clumsy, but it was well intentioned. It was intended to say, let's not look to divide music into colors and etc. and whatever. Let's bring, at this moment in time when everybody's fighting, let's use music to bring people together. And I explained that to the person who I responded to on that tweet. He accepted my apology. But that exchange wasn't part of the conversation, and the fact that he accepted that I apologized and my apology wasn't accepted, that wasn't part of the conversation. It was just the headline point that I say music has no color. And so, you know, but it's like I understood why that was maybe a little, I mean, everyone uses the word, the definition tone deaf now, or insensitive or whatever. I understand why at that moment in time it was perceived to be that way. I've learned from that, you know, and it's but that's exactly what I was saying. So it was just like, we know the responsibility that we have, so we don't want to be flippant in our communications for it to cause, you know, more issues further down the line. It's a difficult place to be, you know. I don't want to conduct myself like a politician, but I kind of feel that sometimes you have to in these times, you know. All I can do is come from my heart and be true to myself, and sometimes that's going to, you know, you also have to understand, I was born in the 60s, I was brought up in the 70s, and some things that were considered acceptable practice, I now understand them not to, you know, that they were just outrageous at the time. And I'm having to re-educate myself consistently about, you know, about Black lives, about Black rights, about gay rights, about, you know, sexuality, female rights, etc. You know, what the way men conducted themselves in the 60s and 70s and the way that they should conduct themselves now are completely different. And that's a completely that's a massive re-education for myself and for men like me.
And the irony of it is that sometimes when you speak of the spaces which actively have broken down barriers, fostered union and oneness and diversity, the dance floors, they're actually there because of the frustrations of marginalization and disenfranchisement and whatnot. So it's I think, again, I definitely can understand how important your part is in this, but the essence of which we arrived there also has to be included in that conversation. Otherwise, that's the part which obviously seems most frustrating, because if we wasn't frustrated, I guess if we wasn't frustrated, we wouldn't even really be making this music. This music sometimes is a manifestation of our angst coming from wherever we're coming from in our environment. So yeah, I think the narrative always has to kind of be included in there, which we are now having conversations to try and make happen.
I agree 100%. I mean, you know, it really hurts me when people tweet and comment that the UK or you know, Britain is a racist country. You know, I see much good that's done. I see lots of interaction between, you know, different races and sexuality, and people getting on in a really good way. That's my world. Okay, so I align myself with like-minded people that are open-minded, that are accepting, etc. But I also realize there's another parallel world where that just doesn't happen, and those issues need to be addressed. Because I don't believe I'm racist in any way, and I don't think like a racist and whatever, in my ideological, it just doesn't exist. You know, that's the world that I want. I don't have to experience what Black people have to experience. I mean, you know, that's what obviously people are referring to as white privilege, and you know, it's again, it's something that you have to put yourself in those kind of positions to even try to understand it. But you can never truly understand it because you're not there, you're not experiencing it. But we could, you know, we can try as best we can to try and break down those walls of normally just ignorance. You know, it's you know, I believe that music has been really, really good to me in a hugely positive way. I've traveled the world. I've met, you know, my mother, when I first went to Dubai, she goes, "Oh, you know, you don't want to, why you go to Dubai? There's Muslims there. You know, are you going to be okay?" And I'm like, "Mum, I'm going to be fine." She's a product of a different era and a different, you know, it doesn't mean bad by it. She just, she's not educated. She hasn't traveled. She's not got to experience those things. And you know, and she reads a publication like the Daily Mail. And the Daily Mail, when you know, when the right wing marched against the Black Lives Matter movement and whatever, the headline the next day is, "What has happened to our tolerant Britain?" Okay, and yet the Daily Mail, literally, someone posted an image of like all of their headlines about immigrants and this and that, and they're part of the problem. And you know, it's and so I have to acknowledge there is absolutely much to do, and I have to acknowledge that you know, that people do have a voice, and I watched because I'm trying to understand more. I watched a documentary called 13th.
Yeah, brilliant. Yeah. How'd you find it?
I just was like, this is just outrageous.
I know, unbelievable. I know
that the fact that to imprison people in America is actually a business.
Yeah.
People make money of it, and the laws are passed by people that have a conflict of interest because they want to make money out of people being incarcerated was just mind-blowing to me. And you know, and the initial thing about abolishing slavery and then imprisoning Black people so that they could then work on chain gangs and whatever, it just was just slavery in a legal way or in a different way. I could, you know, so all of those frustrations are something that I can't comprehend because I'm just not in that position. So so I'm happy to listen to talk to people about issues. Where I find sometimes it's difficult is when people use it to settle personal scores and gripes and grievances and whatever, and then it becomes I don't think it becomes helpful at that moment. Which and it does happen, you know.
Yeah, definitely. Because obviously I've been aware of the fact that when we had our conversation, people try to leverage their own gripes and grievances outside of the things that I was highlighting, which isn't what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to not speak for myself. I'm trying to educate on behalf of a community of musicians, first and foremost, who have struggled to articulate successfully the inner workings of the industry, and some have done it and got it completely wrong, and it just comes out as angry rants, bitter, and it takes a lot of patience, a lot of introspection as well to understand that this has to be all linked to education. There's a lot of stuff I still have yet to discover and understand about the music business, and there's stuff that I could impart on yourself about my experiences coming up, and I think a mutual exchange. And that's why I'm very careful to once again highlight that this is a conversation of sorts. This isn't a trial or anything like that. This is an actual conversation, an education exchange to better the environment we all work in. But it has to come from a place of honesty. And I've been tweeting recently. I'm trying very, very hard to make honesty trendy, because I think once we, so I was laughing, but once we get there, who knows? I mean, it could be very, very beneficial to how we all feel about ourselves in the music industry, and that goes across the board in regards to how gay people are represented, trans people, black women, women in general, everyone across the board, how they're represented. And then after that, we have to tackle the real behemoth task, which is how we get decent money out of the music that we sell as well. That's a big mountain to climb. But I guess step by step, we begin to take on these challenges. But it has to come from, I think, me personally, what I see a space of honesty. And today, I think this is quite an historic moment, these conversations that we're having.
So, I mean, there is, the record industry gets sometimes an unfair reputation. Sometimes the criticisms are justified. So, you know, at the end of the day, all I can do again is speak for the way we conduct ourselves and what we do. So we're a business. It is my business. I've grown it from ground zero to the point where it is now. Mm-hmm. We employ 45, 46 people as employees. Mm-hmm. We contract or enter into negotiations and have relationships with artists, singers, songwriters, etc. They're not exclusively signed to us. In the main, a lot of them are just moment in time single song assignments. So we're not tying them down and restricting their creativity or their livelihoods or etc. We tell everybody to seek legal advice before they enter into a contract with us, so that they can get good advice and guidance, and they enter into it knowingly. We pay people. We pay people normally in advance. We pay them, and if the record is successful, we pay them royalties.
And I can attest to that. I can attest to the fact that you've advised on seeking legal advice, because I've signed a record with your business as well. So, from my perspective, yeah.
I mean, it's the right thing to do. I mean, you don't want to have issues further down the line. It doesn't serve any purpose whatsoever. The fact that I have long-term relationships and my company has long-term relationships that exceed 25 years in some instances shows that we do, I believe, the right thing, and we pay people and we look after them well and we treat them well and we treat them respectfully. If we didn't do that, I wouldn't have those relationships. Sometimes you enter into an agreement with someone and the chemistry just isn't right. You just don't end up getting on with them. It's the same as meeting a girl or finding a sexual partner. Sometimes it's, you know, a drink. Sometimes it's a one-night stand. Sometimes you end up in a marriage. You know, the chemistry between people is a factor.
Yeah.
And it's a very, very complicated business. You know, there are all sorts of discussions about, you know, cultural appropriation of music and whatever. You know, we sign records and we promote them as the records are delivered. We don't say this is a record by a black artist and promote it as a white artist. We promote it according to the artist that's made the record, and we're proud to do so. And you know, and as I said to you, some people benefit greatly from our promotion and our activities, and we don't see the benefits from them. You know, sometimes they get gigs, they take gigs with our competitors, they get paid very well for DJing because we've done a good job promoting them. We don't see any of the income associated with that. Sometimes they go and they sign records with other labels, which is really hugely frustrating and annoying for me personally.
Yeah.
But they choose to do that.
Yeah.
And then sometimes that's off the back of our work. So,
Yeah.
you know, when we enter into our agreements, we have an exchange, and people decide whether they think it's going to bring value to their lives and etc. And then we have an agreement. We try to honour those agreements as best we possibly can. We've gone through many transitions. We've gone through economic downturns and recessions, and people going out of business owing us money. And when that money doesn't come into our business, it means that sometimes we've had to ask people, can you be patient while we pay you, etc. Do we run a perfect ship? No. Anyone that says they do is probably hiding behind something, probably.
Yeah.
But you know, we try to talk to people, and we try to reason out. I want my reputation personally, the reputation of my company, is the only reason that people will do business with us. So I try to maintain really high standards, professionally and as a person.
Yeah, I think
so. You know, it's difficult, but it's as I keep saying, the only thing that you can do. I mean, I want to sleep well at night as well. I believe I'm a good person.
Yeah.
I believe that, you know, I try to do the right thing in most instances.
I think I wanted to actually touch on, because we've had a few phone calls as well, just kind of sharing information in and around this. And one of those things that we've spoken about is just the expectations some people have of a business and what a business is supposed to do. And some of those expectations, they can be a bit unfair, in regards to the right here, right now, in this moment, how people believe companies, especially limited companies, should be conducting themselves and what they are obligated to do, kind of thing. And that's a very gray area, because if you're actively trying to tell someone who has dedicated a large percentage of their money and energy into a field of expertise personal to them, to then kind of commandeer that journey and say they must do this, they must do that, that in itself is unrealistic. I think that conversation needs to be had, and probably it's best it comes from myself rather than for you, kind of thing. But again, I think what we go ahead.
I'm happy to answer it. I'm happy to comment. I'm happy to talk about it. It's I think it's a very complicated situation. But that, you know, if you say what you wish, and then I'll respond, or I'll tell you my experiences. So
yeah, I mean, from my personal feelings, when we had that conversation, I did have a think of it, because I've spoken to other businesses, and I run a small business myself, and I do understand that in itself would be unfair, just to appease a group of individuals that you have no real connection with. It has to feel, first and foremost, right for the business, and then right for, I guess, the message that you're trying to project of fairness and equality throughout your organization. And we've personally wrestled within the Black community with the concept of tokenism, in regards to people being there but not actively serving the agenda that they was placed there for. So that's why it does become a very tricky obstacle from your perspective as a white man, finding an individual who by definition can represent his community through his decision making and his ability to inject that level of discernment and information into your company and into your brand. That's something which is quite tricky to navigate.
I mean, there are so many. It is a really complicated scenario. So I may go off in different directions.
No, sure.
For a second, and feel free to interject. So, my first obligation is to my family.
Yep.
Okay, as everybody that has a family will know that they go to work so they can provide for their family. So I have to make decisions accordingly. My second obligation is to my artists and the people that we employ. I have to survive in business.
Mm-hmm.
I have to survive in business to pay my family, to keep my employees employed, and to pay my artists and continue to do what we do. So they're the things that drive me to make decisions. We look at our workforce. We do have a diversity in our workforce. It doesn't necessarily have to be a diversity of white versus black, but we have people from different countries. We have a very good balance of male to female employees. Could we have more black employees? Probably yes is the answer, and we're very conscious of that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought about it. I thought about it since we discussed about it as well. And you mentioned to me maybe there's something that is beyond where I said to you, not many black people apply for the vacancies that we advertise, and you said maybe there's something further back than that's an issue. Could could we have more black artists? I think we have a fair balance of black artists versus white artists. So I think that is. But honestly, if I look at black culture and black preferences in music, house music is probably quite far down the list of musical preferences for the black community. If you're a talented writer, producer, DJ, singer, you're more likely to make a hip hop record, an R&B record, a grime record, maybe even a trap record before you even get to house. So that, for me, would say that the real talent, and we're a house music label. I've never gone where I, thought that I could necessarily make more money, because I want to make music that feeds my soul, that fulfills me, that I feel is personally aligned to my own personal taste. So that is a factor. Maybe, the people that want to attend our clubs are going to a grime night or a hip hop night, or et cetera, et cetera. We don't have control over that. I'd love them to come to our nights, because it would bring a vibe, but so they're factors, and the way that I view it, and again, we talked about this previously, was that if I can make my business successful and we can make our platforms popular and we can grow our numbers, then I can start to educate people and break down walls of prejudice and just go, this is an amazing record. It doesn't matter the color of the person that's made this record or the color of the person that's singing on this record. Just love this record. And then subconsciously, maybe you could, if people do have racial tendencies, or or just have discriminate in any way, shape or form, I think that they could start to question themselves from within, and that's always a good place for it to start. So by us being successful, I think that I can use that in a really positive way. And that is what we've done with Glitterbox. We've actually broken down people's discriminations against gay people, against trans people, etc., by having artists like Honey Dijon on classic records, or having Lucy Fizz dance for us, who's a transsexual, etc. And then people think about what, how those people have got to be put in front of them, and the fact that they make them feel, that they can relate to them. I never ever thought I would be in this kind of position, and so because here I am now talking to you in this way, I'm beginning to realize how how I need to maybe up my game and be and use the fact that we have good platforms in a positive way. I'm a very forward-thinking person. I believe to look into the future. I can look back at the past. I can't change the past. I can learn from the past, but I think I can have a positive change on what we do going forward.
Mm.
And that is where I want my focus is to be. I know the wrongs that we've done. You know, I can look back at them, I can apologize, or I can maybe even try to justify them because of where we were at that moment in time. I'm not saying they're acceptable. I can just say that was just a moment in time. It doesn't look good. I've learned from it. We've moved on. I'll not make that mistake again.
Yeah.
And I hope that is the conversation that's being had with many people around the world.
Yeah. And I don't want this to feel like this is solely your burden to bear either. I think this, like I said, this conversation is to be a wake-up call to the rest of the industry of how to conduct yourself, how to be introspective and look within and just take stock of the decisions that we make in the industry and how it affects people. I mean, even just to touch back on the conversations that we start with the records that we project out there into the mainstream market, the level of education now that probably needs to come with the records, i.e. whether that's come through the visuals or why did you choose this artwork or whatnot. And I said to you before on the phone that like the artwork that Defected has had historically over the years has been incredible because it's this really strong African imagery in some of the vinyl covers that I used to buy. And just having imagery like that, it probes and it encourages investigation into that area. And where we're at now, I think socially, this is just from me rubbing my crystal ball, I feel like we're at a stage where that's needed even more so because we found ourselves at a time where what we thought we knew wasn't always the right information. So at that stage where kind of music existed as a form of escapism, an escape to the other, when you leave your 9 to 5 and you leave your woes and your troubles behind, you can escape to an other, but escape to an other of education, if that makes sense, rather than complete abandonment of problems, because that in itself is what we're talking about. It does the artist a disservice because it is the problem which has created this wonderful music. So that's where I'm coming at it from, and these discussions hopefully will bridge the two together. So essentially there is no compromise in the art form.
I mean, one of the things that you asked was, how was I introduced to black music?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm really lucky because I identified in myself at a very early age that I'm good at speaking. I'm good at speaking to people, right? So I'm a people's person. I spent my life, I mean, the reason lockdown is so frustrating for me because I spend my life going out and meeting people and trying to make things happen and getting people to collaborate. And I've been really restricted and it's been very frustrated. But from I think my very early 20s, I used to listen to pirate radio in London, and I used to listen to Solar and DJs like Bob Jones who played soul. They just played soul records. And I remember one show specifically, and he played a Bobby Womack record, and he played a Breakwater. It was just great jazz, funk, soul music, and it just hit me like a lightning bolt. I just, and I used to record his shows every week and try and buy everything he played. I mean, this is a story of many people, when they're getting into music. But for me, it was soul music. And artists like Aretha Franklin, Bobby Womack, Curtis Mayfield, Tyrone Davis, Gene Khan, Teddy Pendergrass, Harold Melvin. These were the records that I related to.
Yeah, can see some of them behind you.
This is 25 years of 35 years of collecting records. So, so then because I love this music so much, I started making tapes for people.
Mm.
You know, normally it was a great calling card to meet a girl. You know, you need to listen to this, and lyrics in soul music are all about love and all that sort of stuff. And it, you know, it was a little cheesy, but that's the way it was, right? So I made so many tapes for people; they became so popular that people started to ask me to DJ. So when I DJ'd, I'm playing black music. I'm playing the music I love. I'm playing soul. I'm playing disco. House wasn't even around at this moment in time. It was like, you know, rare groove scene was big, etc.
Yep.
Whatever money I made, I went and bought new music. Everything, you know, I was doing a pools round, a paper round, working at Marks and Spencer's in the warehouse. You know, like I left school with no qualifications. You know, it's not something I'm proud of. It's just the way that it is. And I hustled.
You've done all right, though.
I hustled hard.
Yeah.
To buy music, and I wrote for Blues and Soul magazine. I started promoting events. I brought over singers from America, very unknown or relatively unknown black artists, Sam Dees, Luca and Jesse James. I put them on at Dingwalls. I probably lost money, but it's all good because I did it because I just loved the music.
Yeah.
All of this led me to get a job at a major label, which was the next stage of my education. And I did whatever I could to sign great house records, to promote great house records. I'd commission remixers and etc. until I felt I knew enough to start my own label. My label is a reflection of my own personal taste in music. My own personal taste in music is soul. So I love my house music to have some soul. It doesn't always work out that way. I mean, some of the records that I love personally, that are my favorite records on the label, are the least successful records. And some of the most successful records are my least favorite. That's just music, and that's just business.
Yeah.
You know, and first and foremost, I'll go back to what I said earlier. We are a business, so I have to put out music that's commercially successful to pay the bills. And sometimes I sign records to satisfy my soul. And as long as the balance is right, we're all good. So, you know, but I understand the roots of dance music, and I understand the roots of the music that I love, and I want to tell people about that. I want to share, whether I be giving someone a tape or DJing in a club or promoting a record, doing club promotions, or writing for Blues and Soul and telling people about music, or signing records now and shouting about it from my platforms. I'm promoting music, and normally I'm promoting black music. I might do it in my clumsy, ham-fisted way, but my intentions are always well meant. And if someone takes exception to them, as long as they come to me in a constructive way and they're not raging, I'm happy to listen to them.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm happy to be turned. And I will very often admit that I'm wrong. I'm happy to admit that I'm wrong if I feel like I've learned something. It's just don't come angry, because it never ends well. It's never a great place to start. But I understand why people are angry. I mean, especially around the time. So, you know, I tried to take that on board, etc. I'm still learning. You know, and you have to realize as well, I'm 57 years old. I'm stubborn. That comes with, like, I know what's right. I know the way I want to. I know, you know, it's like men in particular, we're proud men. I'm a proud man. But I have to let that go. You know, because I have to let that go. And sometimes it's just not easy, depending on the mood that you're in.
Yeah.
So, you know, we had an instance where we talked about a dancer from Glitterbox.
Yep.
He sent me a text. I didn't want to listen to him at that moment in time. I got my own shit I got to deal with. So I was flippant in my response to him, because that's how I felt at that moment in time.
Upon reflection?
Upon reflection, there's a huge backstory to that exchange. I think that that caused me to react in the way that I reacted. Upon reflection, I probably would have had a better exchange with him, and we probably would have come to some kind of an agreement. But what happened was he posted our personal exchanges online, and so it then became trust and respect. And that is actually that saddened me, actually, because I don't wish anybody any harm, and I feel that I've lost someone who I considered a friend because of a lack of trust, and trust is very important. I'm sure that you agree with that.
Definitely.
But at that moment in time, I mean, we're in lockdown. People are still raging about Brexit, the election, Black Lives Matter. This is a very intense. Social media is a war zone of polarized opinions. I mean, the Black Lives Matter just mobilized the right wing. The right wing is, a raging people, and it's just not. Harmony is not good in the universe at this moment in time. So I think I probably knee-jerked and reacted really badly. But we're human as well. You have to take that into consideration. That that's what I mean. It's a very running a business, being online, having responsibility. It's complicated, and sometimes it's just not as easy and straightforward as what people think.
No, I can definitely understand that. Do you think that's probably why many of your competitors in the industry are probably more faceless organizations, because they are avoiding the personality or the accountability that comes with a personality? And I think it's testament to your commitment and your conviction to house music, the fact that you're willing to put your face to your organization and speak on the genre that you love and you hold dear. But I can definitely see that you're probably one of very few labels and organizations that are customer facing.
I mean, the music industry is a people to people business. Relationships are the key to most deals being done, or most success stories. There's normally a kind of hierarchy and personal relationships and whatever. So people want to sign to people that they can trust and they aspire to. If you're faceless, how can you trust them?
Yeah, true.
How do you know what you're signing to? And so I made a conscious decision to be very visible on social media, because I want people to want to sign to my company. I'm not hiding from anything. I'm not saying we're perfect. I'm not saying we haven't made mistakes. I'm not saying everybody has to agree with what we do. I'm not saying everybody has to like what we do. But if you do, then this is what we are. This is what we represent. And if you can relate to that, then maybe we're a good home for you. And then that's a good starting place. If you're faceless, you're just a brand. I don't believe that we're a brand. I believe we represent a lifestyle and a I'm trying to think of the right word here. A certain type of person. House music brings people together from all over the world. When we do Croatia, we have people travel from Australia, from America, from Asia, from Brazil, from all over Europe to be together. They're like-minded people. And when they get there, they connect in such a way. It's just, I get very emotional. It's magical. I can't, I can't believe that a label and the music that we put out and the artists that we represent have that kind of connection with people, that they're prepared to give up 7 days of their life and travel around the world just to come to a party. That just blows my mind. But when I think about it, even deeper than that, they obviously look at us, what we do and our activities, and as we've mentioned several times, that gives us a responsibility. I don't think that we should necessarily preach about it and try to drive it into people.
Okay.
I think that we can do that from within,
yeah,
and make them question themselves.
Yep.
I think that's, if someone tells you what to do, your normal reaction is to do the completely opposite.
Yeah.
So, but if we can just make them question themselves through music and through our messaging and through our communications, and change them from within, then I think it's a deeper, more powerful situation, and that's what we want to do. You know, we understand that, and we speak to our artists about it. We speak to our dancers about it. We speak to our employees about it. We speak to our community about it. We try to understand how they feel, and we try to put ourselves in a position where collectively our actions speak for the good, and try to do positive things.
I'd like to just speak on one last thing before I let you go, because you obviously got a very, very busy day programming for the foreseeable future when we can be back out in the clubs raving again, and that is more of a joint experience in regards to the education that straight or dare I say it, heterosexual cis men, any one of those terms, just I've used all three terms just to familiarize anyone out there who's listening, how we educate ourselves in regards to the Black gay community or the Latino gay community or the gay community in general, which have formed the bedrock for our culture. Now, I've had to take stock of understanding the different terminology, the subtle nuances, personality types, which can be misconstrued in regards to the circumstances that I highlighted in the thread, and obviously which is more personal to yourself. And I think obviously that needs to be encouraged a lot more, that us men who sit in that realm of being heterosexual, we encourage our own education in those areas. I mean, we spoke on the phone and you said that you went to, is it Brighton Festival once before, and you kind of immersed yourself in the community and the culture, and that kind of again furthered your understanding of things and whatnot. And again, obviously probably working with Honey, that would have also furthered your education in how Honey would want to be represented with her artwork and her music. And again, it is an uncomfortable space, but this whole education thing, we have to project the idea that it is 360. It's not just me projecting an instance of you as a white person need to know more about Black people and so on and so forth. There's all sorts of multilateral directions of education at play, especially in the online realm, because like you said, there's a lot of people upset at the moment.
We live in a world where we now have more access to information than we've ever had, and people have more voices and can be heard in a louder and more direct way than they've ever been able to have before. So, and I think that, I think we're still in the early infancies of social media, and it's we had an instance at the weekend where Wiley was loud on social media, and the problem with that for me was the fact that the social media platforms never took it down instantly. Just don't give it oxygen. Just don't let it live. I mean, that was really irresponsible from them. You know, I'm not going to go into how people should have reacted and didn't react, or did react, or etc., etc. Social media just should not have allowed it to exist.
Mm-hmm.
And but you know, going back to your point, I was, you know, the nuances of transsexuality, or you know, different genders and how people identify with themselves and whatever, didn't exist in my world 3 years ago, 5 years ago. I just think that all you can do is listen to people and understand and accept that they have the right to feel the way that they do and to be different, as long as they're not harming other people and they're not malicious and you know, etc. People have the right to feel the way that they do, you know, and you know, it's something that I've again, I've had to re-educate myself on. You know, I mean, I obviously things like Little Britain. I mean, I never felt comfortable watching Little Britain. And it's I mean, like, I was like, how can they get away with, you know, with that? And I think people never laughed at it because they thought it was funny. People laughed at it because they were embarrassed by it.
Yeah, true.
It was awkward comedy. It wasn't funny comedy. And you know, all of those things. I mean, should I was on social media at the time. Should I have shouted about? I felt awkward about it, and it wasn't right. Probably, yes, I probably should have done. I think we're all learning. I think that you know, there is always going to be an element of people are going to be understanding, and they're going to accept, and there are always going to be people that just can't come to terms with it. It's just too much for them to comprehend. They can't deal with it. And because they can't deal with it, they're going to try and section it off instead of bringing everything together. And I think that applies to race, religion, sexuality, etc., etc. It's I do hope that as each generation is introduced into the world and each generation gets older. I mean, I watched Rodney Peace Jazz Funk program. Did you watch that?
No, I missed it. Yeah,
it's still on BBC. It's definitely worth watching. But it was about the fact that when the Windrush generation came over, and they were the first black people to arrive and create a community in Britain, and then their children went to school. And it was the first time that black and white people went to school together. And that, you know, and then they in a lot of instances they got on. In some instances they didn't, but you know, there was really, and a whole scene of music, the jazz funk scene, grew out of those people getting on and their love of music and dancing together. And it actually made me realize that there are some really good positive stories to come out of Britain being multicultural. But people don't talk about the good stories. People highlight the bad. And but it's, you know, it just goes back to that thing that I think that as the youth grow up together, accepting of sexuality, accepting of race and whatever, hopefully those boundaries will, you know, get broken down. I hope it's accelerated. I hope there's a catalyst for it happening quicker rather than it being a slow kind of bringing of people together. But I you know, as much as I think there is work to do, I do think that there have been improvements in a lot of areas. So yeah, I hope that's been helpful.
No, Simon, you've been absolutely brilliant, and thank you once again for just throwing yourself into the deep end, because I can understand how potentially terrifying and uncomfortable it is to be in this predicament at this time and have to answer questions that or inquiries that you have no real direction on or lead on. You have to obviously, I guess, have faith in my personality and kind of the stuff that I've been doing online to see where I'm trying to steer this conversation. But if we get there, it will be a case of we have achieved this. not an I. And that's what I'm always trying to push forward, that we're trying to build a community. And I'm not really comfortable being associated with the idea that this is down to me. I can't do this without the voices and the contributors piling in and helping a vision or a niche that I've seen to kind of achieve this goal of effectively creating a newness out of this lockdown situation, which can be even more enjoyable. So
I mean, I'll repeat myself in that, you know, I left school with no qualifications. You know, I'm a product of the 60s and 70s. I'm learning as fast as I can. Not everything that I do is perfect, and I'm going to make mistakes and whatever, but know that my intentions are always good, and know that I'm happy to be corrected and to make any mistakes that we do right. You know, we absolutely are dedicated to bringing everybody together, and we'll do it in the best way we possibly can. And I'm sure that applies to many people around the world.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
Try to look at the good that they do instead of highlighting the bad, and trying to turn them upside down because they've made one slip up and whatever. It doesn't necessarily mean they think that way or they behave that way all of the time. And just think before you rage at someone on social media, because sometimes it's counterproductive and it's not helpful. And I just want, you know, and it's really difficult because I understand, but if we could just have a calmness to this debate, I think it would be much more productive. People are happy to listen. People are happy to change. People are happy to look in, you know, for good intentions into the future and work things out together. Because all of this energy is much better served in a different way of bringing people together and having a more positive future. I can't change, you know, I can't change what happened 200 years ago and whatever, but it's there as a reminder that we need to learn and we need to conduct ourselves in a much better way. And that's what I hope, and I'm sure that many people hope that you know, it's the needless and you know, death of George Floyd and the way it was done, if it can create positive change out of all, you know, the weight of opinion is so strong, that people are, I'm sure people are reflecting, and if it, you know, I wish it hadn't happened, for all the obvious reasons, but if good can come out of it, then you know,
definitely.
at least something has happened out of something which is a hugely negative situation, you know. So cool.
Brilliant, Simon, thank you very much.